Chris here, and welcome to my channel. For today's 5 on Friday, I'm going to share with you my top 5 standalones of 2021. First up, we have Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. So this is an adult sci-fi, and all I'm going to tell you about it is that we're following a man who wakes up with absolutely no memory of who he is, where he is, or what is going on, and has to try to figure that out. I don't want to tell you anymore. That is all I knew going into it, and I loved getting to discover what is going on with our main character as he does. I flew through this book. I absolutely adored it. It might be my favorite book that I read last year, standalone series, whatever, like just my favorite book that I read last year. I absolutely loved it, and I was not expecting to love it as much as I did. I can be very hit or miss with sci-fi, and this one it gave me everything I could have wanted and then some. I really enjoyed getting to find out what was going on with our main character, and I suggest you go into it with as little information as possible, because I think part of the fun that I had reading this book was discovering the story with our main character and only knowing the pieces of information that he knew at the time that he knew them. So definitely in my top 5 overall, but most likely my favorite book that I read in the entirety of 2021. And if you follow my channel, you know I read a ton of books last year. I believe it was like 425, probably more than that, I think. Around there, like it was over 400 books that I read last year, and this was an easy choice when it came to my top 5 standalones, because I just absolutely adored this book and highly recommend it if you haven't checked it out. Next up is Ace of Spades by Faraday Abake Amidye, and this is a YA mystery kind of book. We're following 2 teenagers, Chiamanka and Devin, who are attending a private school, and they could not be more different. Chiamanka is this bright, popular overachiever. And while Devin is bright as well, he's far more into his music and doesn't have as many friends. They're in their senior year, and at the beginning of the year, Chiamanka is chosen as head girl to the surprise of no one, while Devin is chosen to be a senior prefect, which is a complete surprise. So it seems like the year is starting off well for both of them, until a mysterious texter who refers to themselves as aces starts putting them on blast and reveals things they wouldn't necessarily want known to the entirety of the school. Both Chiamanka and Devin must race to find out who the mysterious aces is before their lives are destroyed, or before one of them gets hurt, or worse. So this book gave me such Gossip Girl vibes, because if you've ever watched Gossip Girl, you know that it was like an anonymous website, and they would say things about the upper elite of New York City, and it would be like XOXO Gossip Girl. And the way these texts goes out, I couldn't help but read them in the voice Kristen Bell did for that character. And I feel like it should have been signed off with XOXO Aces. And I really enjoyed that mystery aspect of not knowing who could possibly be doing this to them. And they're both in very different social circles, so like they're trying to figure out why they specifically are being targeted. I really enjoyed the mystery and getting to discover the truth of what was going on with both Chiamanka and Devin. And it was a really fast-paced book, and once I picked it up, I didn't want to put it down. I was anticipating liking it, but I wasn't anticipating liking it as much as I did. So I really enjoyed this book, and definitely want to read more from this author in the future, because I really like how she put her story together. Next up is Cemetery Boys by Aiden Thomas. In this book, we're following Yadriel, whose family is really struggling to accept his true gender. With the help of his cousin Maritza, who truly understands him, he plans to show his family that he really is a brujo. He decides the best way to do this is to find the ghost of his murdered cousin and help set him free. Unfortunately, he ends up getting the wrong ghost. Enter Julian, who has no plans to just let Yadriel quietly send him on his way. He wants to know how he ended up dead, and to check on his friends and loved ones before he goes. So Yadriel has no choice but to help Julian fulfill his final wishes. Along the way, he grows attached to Julian and realizes that letting go of Julian is going to be a lot harder than he anticipated. So this is a YA fantasy romance, and I think the theme, in a lot of ways, of my favorite standalones was books I wasn't expecting to love as much as I did. This was another book I absolutely flew through, and I was not expecting that. I picked it up, I think I read it in one sitting, and I just knew once I picked it up that I didn't want to put it down. I got really attached to Yadriel and Julian and their relationship, And it was interesting to see Yadriel deal with his family as he is trans and is trying to help his family to understand his gender identity. And some of them are handling it better than others, and I thought that was an interesting addition to the story. I really love Yadriel's relationship with his cousin Maritza, and the fact that she is so supportive of him. I loved getting to see Yadriel try to figure out how he ended up with Julian's ghost as opposed to the ghost of his cousin, while still trying to figure out what happened to his cousin. And it's just got some really good family vibes, and I really enjoyed the romance in this book and how it was told, and it was just another surprising book that I really, really loved in 2021. Next up is Under the Whispering Door by TJ Klune. In this book, we're following Wallace, who dies suddenly and is brought to a tea shop owned by a man named Hugo. Hugo is a ferryman. He has the job of helping spirits pass from our world to the afterlife. Hugo is really struggling with the idea he is dead and the realization of all the things he missed out on while he was living. As he starts to realize the error of his ways, the manager, a mysterious and powerful being who is Hugo's boss, shows up and tells Wallace he has 7 days to cross over or the manager will make him. And so, with the help of Hugo and the others at the tea shop, Wallace tries to cram as much life into the last 7 days he will be on Earth as he possibly can. So I really enjoyed this book. I thought it was interesting watching Hugo come to terms with a life he realized he wasted and the regret he had about the things he would have done had he known that his time was going to be so short. I loved watching him develop relationships with the people at the tea shop and struggling with the idea that now that he's dead, he's finally found some real friends and made real connections with people. I will say this book is extremely grief heavy, so if that's not something you can handle, you probably shouldn't read it because it does touch on grief in a very real and poignant way. And it was really easy to connect to as, like everybody I've lost, people I've loved. And TJ Klune does a great job of showing some of that grief from both perspectives of the living and the non-living. I really enjoyed the atmosphere of this book and seeing Wallace's growth throughout the book as he learns too late what he should have learned while he was alive. It was just a really touching, poignant, sometimes hard to read book, and I really enjoyed it. And lastly, we have The Sea in Winter by Christine Day. In this book, we're following a young girl named Maisie who absolutely loves ballet, but unfortunately has injured her knee and has been struggling to rehab it ever since. She's worried that when the injury finally heals, she won't be able to perform at the level she was performing at before, and all Maisie has ever wanted to do is grow up and be a professional ballerina. Her family has been super supportive, but she feels like they just don't get it. She's really struggling with everything she's feeling and is having such a hard time because almost all of her friends are people she's met because of ballet, so they're still doing ballet and she can't participate and is feeling like she's been left behind. So she's just really struggling with anxiety and depression because she feels like she may never get the life back that she thought she would. During midwinter break, she goes on a vacation with her family and is really struggling to hide the pain in her knee and to hide all of the emotions that she's feeling and not ruin her family's vacation, even though she's just really not feeling it. She just wants to get through the week and then hopefully can go back to her normal life where she can kind of ignore everything she's feeling, but her feelings really aren't letting her do that. So this is a amazing middle grade book that depicts anxiety and depression extremely well. She is so anxious about the fact that she may never be able to be a ballerina and it's her dream. And granted, she's young, but I think we can all remember being young and having this dream of, I'm going to grow up to be insert option here. And Maisie has worked really, really hard to achieve that goal because if you're going to be a professional ballerina, it's something that you start young, at least usually. And so she is really, really struggling, and it's hard because her friends are growing as ballerinas and she can't because she's hurt, and she's struggling with all of that, and she's depressed because she misses it. She can't relate to her friends the way she did, and she can't relate to her family because they don't really understand what she's going through, and she doesn't really understand what she's going through. Like, I think she struggles to explain what she's thinking and feeling, and I know at her age, I also struggled with anxiety and depression, and it is extremely hard to put into words what you are feeling and try to explain to the loved ones in your life what is going through your head, especially if You have no idea what anxiety and depression are, so you have no words to use to explain what you're feeling. And I just thought that this was a really great book dealing with that topic and explaining it in ways that kids can understand. My heart broke for Maisie when we could see how much she was struggling with the idea that her dream of being a ballerina might not be fulfilled because of this knee injury. I really loved her family and how supportive they tried to be, even though she was going through some rough stuff and maybe wasn't the easiest child to have in their life at any given time, because I know it is hard from that perspective too, because I know how hard it was with my parents because they didn't have a clue what was going on with me. So I thought that Christine Day did a really good job of kind of showcasing both sides of that, even though we're only seeing things from Maisie's point of view. I just really loved this book and really connected with Maisie and wished it was a book I had had when I was a middle grader, and am glad that middle graders today have access to a book like that. So those were my top 5 standalones of 2021. I would love to know what your favorite standalone was of 2021. All of my social media, including my Discord, is linked in the description below if you'd like to come chat with me about any of these books or books in general. If you've made it this far in the video, leave me a purple heart emoji. Like this video and subscribe to my channel, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye!